Hey, what's up, Australia? This is Cory Marks, and I've got a brand new album out called Sorry for Nothing, Volume 2.
Fantastic, Corey. Good to speak with you again, brother.
You too, my friend.
So, as you mentioned, you released your fourth album, Sorry for Nothing, Volume 2, on October 3, which is this Friday. So, how does it feel to finally have it out there in the public domain?
Well, it's crazy to think that this is my second album in less than, in 10 months exactly, because Volume 1 came out in December 2024. So I wrote so many songs and so much music, during the COVID periods into 2023 and early 2024. So, um, this is all music that I love. I'm very proud of and excited to finally have out into the world. So I'm excited, and I think it's a perfect blend of country rock and hard rock. Once again, just me doing my thing and hoping the world loves it when it comes out.
Nice. And would you say it's a vastly different beast to Volume 1, or is it more of a continuation of the same?
I would say it's a continuation. I think there's some really great country stuff on there. Again, might be a biased opinion, of course, but there's some heavier stuff like what you've heard so far already, like Hangman and Are You With Me? And there's some different stuff on there too that I think a song like Someone I Hate, which you hear you even hear some metal screams in there, maybe channeling my Phil Anselmo or my Chester a little bit, which is different for me on the record and even that style of song. Um, but nonetheless, always always looking to grow and do better. So yeah, just another 11 songs that I'm really excited about.
Nice. And you mentioned the singles. So far you've released Are You With Me and Hangman, and on Friday you'll be releasing Whiskey River as well. So
Yeah.
are those three songs a good sonic representation of what to expect, or is there some other things to discover?
I think it's a pretty good idea of what to expect. Like Are You With Me is, it's got some country, got some rock elements, but of course Hangman is pretty straightforward rock. And Whiskey River, is just channeling the music that I grew up on, and maybe of course channeling a little bit of my good friend Travis Tritt in there, and with a '90s country foot stomping sound.
You mentioned this song before, bro, but my favorite on the whole album is Someone I Hate. Like it's an absolute cracker. Like to tell us more about that one and where that came from.
Yeah, that one I wrote with a few friends in Nashville. Um, I think it was kind of like a random write and setup, and it's funny because the way I wanted to angle it too is it sounds like about in a way like you make me into someone I hate. It sounds lyrically too like there's the story behind it. What I try to do is it kind of sounds like it's about a girl or a relationship gone bad, but in reality I kind of reference it towards the music industry and just some of the definitely the lows that feel like highs at times. It can leave you in these certain spots, and like the title says, sometimes it could leave you feeling like someone you hate or someone I hate. And so we tried to reference that, but in terms of a relationship kind of falling apart type story, or let's just say in my case the girl you can't tame rather.
I know that story all well, brother. Now, I don't know if you're going to be releasing that as a single, mate, but if I were you, I'd be pushing for that one to go because the sort of more metalheads like myself will definitely relate to that song.
Yeah, well, it's definitely there's a few songs on this album that I definitely think are single worthy, just like Volume 1. So, we'll see what happens, and hopefully Whiskey River gets a bunch of love, and we could keep popping these singles out from the album.
Nice. Now, on Volume 1, you had guest artists such as Sully Erna, there was Travis Tritt, Mick Mars, and DL from Bad Wolves, but from what I can see, Volume 2 hasn't got any guest artists on it. Like, why decide to put all of them on Volume 1 and not spread them out over both?
Well, I think Volume 1, we it was its own thing, and we really wanted to have a response to Outlaws and Outsiders, and I think Make My Country Rock was just that. Of course, having, like you said, my friends Mick Mars and Travis Tritt on it, but adding a new voice and another beast, another great Sully Erna of Godsmack, and I received my third top 20 at US Rock Radio with that one. So that moved the needle a little bit, and really proud about that. And on this record, I think I want to do something different. I haven't released a record yet with no features, and there are some guitar players on some of the country stuff, friends of mine that are on it, that are playing on it, but no actual features, vocal features, like in the previous album. So I kind of wanted it to have its own voice, and that being me for this one, and I guess going back to the title, I'm sorry for nothing.
Good on you. Now, I'm guessing they were both recorded at the same time. So how did you actually decide what to put on what volume? Like, were you going for balance over the two, or what was your thought process?
Yeah, in a way, like because we initially, sorry for nothing was those that first batch of songs that I really wanted out, that I really wanted the world to hear, and I knew "Make My Country Rock" was definitely, like I said, the answer to "Outlaws and Outsiders," so that had to be on there. And "Sorry for Nothing," I mean, it's the title track, and it's one of my favorites. One of my favorite songs that I've ever written because it's so personal and kind of, right up my alley and lane. Um, and what I like to do is with my albums, I really like to um, curate them in a sense of like, okay, well, if I'm doing 11 songs, I think of it, okay, well, how would I do this in a live show, right? I've always made my records that way. Even if you look back at going back to who I am, and even my very first record, This Man, here in Canada, it's always been like I've always tried to place it where, I take the listener along for a ride, and hopefully a ride they're going to want to enjoy over and over again. I want to get back in line for it. So really, it was just processing the first record, which is obviously volume one, putting that live feel order to it with those songs, and then this one. The last year I've been actually, you know, we end with Outlaws and Outsiders, right? The big bang, but when there's time left, or they ask for an encore, especially in Europe, it was just such a cool thing. I'd actually go out there with just me, the guitar, and the fans, and I would play "Sorry for Nothing" acoustic, which is how we end this album, volume two.
Nice. And look, I've got to say, bro, like I love the title "Sorry for Nothing." Like nobody could ever accuse you of sitting on the fence. You're saying it how you feel, and as it is, it's a perler.
Well, I mean, I mean this, I mean that with all the love in the world. Like Merle Haggard would say, I am what I am, and I love what I love. I mean, I love rock, I love country, I love metal, and I wanted to create, almost, I guess, create a genre or a sound that not only mixes the both, but allows me as an artist to play country music, to play rock, and to headbang a little bit too, because as a drummer, I miss those days, and that's why in the live show, typically if we have at least 75 minutes or it's a headline slot, the crowd gets to see a drum solo too, which has been a lot of fun. It's quite the I think for the most part, unless people have been to a show before or know me as a drummer, it's kind of like, what's he doing back there? And then we start, and it's just like it's so much fun. My drummer goes nuts. He's like, it's so awesome, man. You just go nuts, and it's so cool to see because you do this ballad stuff. You just do your solo acoustic halfway through a show, and then you just get back on the kit, and then boom, we're firing things back up again. So it's a lot of fun. And like I said, the show is I think it's a fun roller coaster. It's a fun roller coaster ride.
Nice. Now, this is the second album of yours that I've spoken with you about, and it still blows me away, mate, how you blend the rock and the country and lashing some metal and make it sound so damn good. Like normally I run for the hills as soon as someone mentions the word country music, but I just
Yeah.
I can't help but enjoy your music. It's something in there.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And when you're listening to it, I'm just so glad you're not saying "Run to the hill," well, run for your life. But no, it's that's kind of been my objective in a way. And of course, it's industry standard, and I've been saying this a lot lately. But sure, I might have made things harder on myself in that sense, of being accepted or playing by the rules or sticking to the box in the box. But um, ultimately, I think it's our job as artists to, the name's in the word, create art and create what you want to do, what you want to say, and how you want to say it, and most of all, connect with fans. And in my case, whether they're country, they're rock or metal, there's some sort of edge, if not all of it, in there for them that they're going to be like, you know what, I like this shit, and I want to go to the concerts, and I want to listen to the album. Before we're going to the bar, we're putting on some Cory Marks. Before we make love, we're gonna listen to Cory Marks, hopefully, or before we light a cigar and sit down and drink whiskey and wine. We're gonna listen to some Cory Marks. So that's I try to write. I try to write and create from the again this I use the reference roller coaster, but this roller coaster life, man, where you have your ups, your downs, and your in betweens, and I think there's a song in there for any or all of that.
Yeah. It's got to be pretty cool sometimes from on stage, though, you looking out because metalheads, country people, and rockers, they all dress differently. They got a different style about it. So you're looking out there, and do they sort of form little pockets? Do your country ones stick together and your metal ones stick together, or are they spread out?
I usually could tell the metalheads, like especially during the live show when Cowboys from Hell kind of starts kicking off, or at the end of the solo, I end my solo with this crazy drum thing, and then I just stop and count us back in, and we go into Laid to Rest by Lamb of God. And whenever we're doing that, or of course the intro to Blame It on the Devil, you got all the metalheads hanging on the bars. It's like, all right, they go to metal concerts.
They are.
Where the country people, I find a lot of them are just kind of like, more subtle, but they got the horns up,
Yeah.
and some of them might just throw their cowboy hat off. Who knows?
That's great. Now, you grew up on musicians from Mel Haggard all the way through to Ozzy Osbourne, but do you remember the moment when you actually sat and thought, like, I could mix these guys together and come up with
I
something
do.
fresh?
I remember the exact moment. I was driving with my dad to Toronto, and it was very early on in my career, and going to Nashville, writing for a week or two and whatnot. And I remember fresh out of high school, my favorite album for a number of years and for a number of reasons was Black Rain by Ozzy Osbourne. And just because there was some of those songs, like, you just want to like rage, and it was rocking, but there's such beautiful ballads on there too. And I thought, okay, well, obviously I can't sound like Ozzy, nobody can.
Yeah.
But having the love for country music, it was like I remember sitting with my dad and we were on the way and we were listening to this album, as I think as he noticed things were getting a little more serious. It's like, well, you know what? It's a Canadian that produced this album. His name's Kevin Churko. This is kind of a crazy story where and we're sitting there listening to the record, and it's like I'm like, oh, and it was so early on in my game that I was just trying to like not make a name, but get down there and write good songs and whatnot and make connections. But I wasn't, ever to like, oh yeah, this producer did that or this songwriter, like, I was just so new to everything. So at that time I wasn't aware, but the fact that he did my favorite album at the time, and I remember telling dad, I'm like, how cool would it be to have a country record like with a Haggard or Eric Church's voice, but with this Aussie production, and I remember, just some of the cool things on that album, like the soldiers marching, and the cool just effects that ultimately, as I learned, Churko did, and then you hear that boot stomp in Outlaws and
Yeah.
Outsiders, where it's like, it was so surreal. So at the time, I said that, and then months go on, and I think it was about 6 months after that, I'm in Nashville with my producer at the time. He goes, you know what? You know what we got to do? I got to introduce you to a kid I grew up with, man. Like, listen, it might not happen now because he's a big time producer, but he's from Saskatchewan. I went to school and church and all that stuff with him, and we played in bands together growing up. Have you ever heard of Kevin Churko? And I'm like, there's no way Kevin Churko. He's like, dude, I swear to God, I'll call him right now, and blah blah blah. A few months after that, he gets an email from Kevin, and they haven't really spoken. Like, it's not like they spoke every day, but they check in every now and then. And I guess after Black Rain and Scream, Kevin called him and said, "Hey man, by the way, is there anybody in the country music scene down there and up there in Canada that that I could probably want to work with. I'm just kind of feeling demoned out. And then he says, I got the perfect guy.
Wow.
So, sends him pictures, sends him the music that I had and some videos and whatnot. And he says, well, look, I'm going to go visit my parents in Moose Jaw on these dates and whatnot. And he says, well, perfect, because Cory's touring with Toby Keith in Moose Jaw and doing all his Canadian dates. So long story short, Kevin comes down with his whole family. And then I found out he was at the show. I was like, you got like no pressure. And
Natural.
but the very cool thing was my parents have never been out west. That was their very first time out west because I was doing a swing of festivals on top of these Toby Keith shows. And sure enough, I find out Kevin's actually going to be at the show. So after the show, I go in my green room and there he was with a shot of Jack for one of each. He says, "Great show, man. Do you want to get to work in September?"
Wow.
And
Great.
that dude, and after that we went out for dinner with my parents. I got to meet his parents, and I told him that whole story about Black Rain, and it's like this is happening, and then
Wow.
we spent, that wasn't we wrote our first two songs were Outlaws and Outsiders and Blame It on the Devil, and we wrote and recorded those songs in September 2015. So, or 2016, I can't remember. I think it was might have been 2015 or 2016. So it was already 5 or 6 years old before it even came out,
Wow. That's a
before we
great
added the
story.
features. It's wild. And then next thing obviously that song blew up and made me the first Canadian country artist to have a top 10 US rock radio hit and a number of top fives in I think 4 or 5 different countries.
That's
Um, it was crazy.
that's great.
I got to write and record 20 some songs with him. And funny, I texted him one of my last nights in Nashville just like a few days ago. I said, "Hey man, I think we need to hop on the phone and catch up, and I think we need to do another album together."
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
putting it out there. I'm putting it out there with you, Chris. So let's see what
See
happens.
what
But
happens.
that's the whole story behind that, man.
That's
It's
fantastic,
it's
man.
long, but it's a good one.
That's great. But like you had that vision, of course, and you made it happen. But it was something fresh and new in the music world. What you were doing. Like, how much effort did it take to get others to share your vision?
Well, that's the great thing is, I mean, he worked with, because at first it was just me, him, and Kane, his son. So, and I already had like some of this acoustic stuff, like Devil's Grin was a half song that I wrote, and then I brought it up to them, and I don't even think it was called Devil's Grin at the time because it was kind of really leaning on the countryside. I think it was Kane who brought that up, and then we kind of ran with it. Her Angel Smiles, the Devil's Grin, and they just did their thing. But we the thing is with Kevin is that um he he not only did he produce like and work with Shania Twain and was in a country band himself, he was a big fan of Steve Earle. That was his favorite, but also loved the Waylon and the Merle, and mine was Merle Haggard, So, but we're both drummers, so it was like, but Shania Twain's from 4 hours up the road north of me, and like now looking back, it's like we played so many of the same venues before she was Shania,
Yeah,
and it's like we just came 4 hours south of where she's from into North Bay, the gateway city. And it's such a crazy, and on top of that, I had this crazy story. Um, Before that whole, my manager introduced us. Well, on my first single, Smartphone, I guess he didn't even tell me who he was going to get it done by. And he went and got it done by this guy. And it, obviously I said, I said, I want a big drum sound and all this. And it was big. And then I guess Kevin Churko heard it. And as a producer, he goes, "That's my sound, blah, 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 blah." And he was kind of like, "What the hell is going on?" I guess Louis, my manager, didn't tell him that he went to Kane, his son, to get it mixed and mastered
all
and
right.
all done. So the next thing you know, he goes, you know, that's like 2 years, maybe 2 years later, Kevin's, introduced to me officially, and then we're all working together, and it's like Kane mixed and produced like my first, my first. I think yeah, he mixed and mastered my first single ever as a professional musician, and then a whole album later, I'm doing my next one with Kevin Churko 4 years, 2 years later.
Shit hard.
So it's pretty wild, and actually, no pun intended. that has a lot to do with a wild ride.
Oh, the song, that's a good song, that one too.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
That
We
was
let
my
the
second
boys rip on
favorite.
that one.
That was my second favorite.
We
So,
let the boys rip on that one.
yeah, and they did. Now, you're out on tour next month with Seven Dust as part of their Southwide Double Wide tour. Like, are you a
Yep.
fan of Seven Dust, man? Like, their acoustic stuff is dynamite.
Well, I actually, when I found out I got the tour, I actually listened to. They have a record from 2001. That's their live album. So I,
On
you
guys
know,
and
like,
Banshees.
yeah, when I go to the gym, I would listen to it. But I didn't. I knew who they were, and I had a lot of friends that listened to them too, like a lot of my metalhead friends, and I've obviously heard their songs and stuff, but you know, yeah, I was quite surprised when I found out I was going out on tour with them. But honestly, and I've said this in every interview, everyone that heard about it, like my buddies in Theory of a Dead Man, and even guys like Ivan Moody and all that, they're like, man, yeah, they're great. They're great guys. Like you're gonna love them. They're really awesome. Like I've heard nothing but great things about them. Like, oh, you guys are gonna get along so well. It's gonna be great.
And the acoustic stuff they do, bro, like I got goosebumps talking about it. Like that, you light up, and you'll fit in really well with them too, bro. The stuff you do. I wish I was in America. I'd come to every show.
Well, man, that's the thing. I've had some questions about that. Like, how are you going to fit in? I said, honestly, I'm just going to go out there with me, my acoustic guitar. It's just going to be me, my guitar, and the songs and the fans, and I'm going to just try to win them all over every night and do what I do. And I think it's acoustic. It worked very, very well with Theory of a Dead Man, and even with a Bryan Adams cover near the end, and I'm up there playing what I want to play, and I just pray to God that or the music gods, or rather, pray that the people out there that paid for a ticket are going to love it too. That's the most
I'll,
important thing.
I'll back you in 100%, brother. I reckon you'd be a perfect. Like I say, Seven Dust is one of my favorite bands in the world. I'll back
Oh,
you 100%, bro.
appreciate that, Chris. Thank you.
So, and then by the end of this year, you would have done a headline tour of Canada. You would have done debut tours to Europe and the UK and toured America. But there's one country missing out of all of that one.
Yeah, it's way down there, isn't
You know what's going on when you plan on coming over?
Well, honestly, Australia's been a bucket list for me since Outlaws, and I had about I think it was 6 or 7 shows with 2 festivals all lined up down there, and then COVID hit.
Ah, bummer.
So I had 100. I think it was around 100 shows because it was I had dates with Alice Cooper. It was like 6 or 7 dates with Alice Cooper in the States. An amphitheater tour, which I think was like 36 dates with Breaking Benjamin and Theory of a Dead Man. There was like 5 of us on that bill. So that just in the US alone, I think I was around 40, 45 shows. Canada with the festivals and a tour that I was on was another 30, 35 shows. And then there was another dozen that were locked in with Germany, Italy, Australia. I'm not sure if I think the UK as well. And it just all went away.
Bummer. So,
Yeah.
in
So
talking about coming
so
back,
so that being said, like some of the radio stations in the country, and the country stations have been, you know, loving the music and getting me into that top 40, and hopefully, Whiskey River is. I know it's going on the radio, and I'm already getting some ads down there, which I'm hoping will definitely make that case for me to get down there, whatever it is, and I hope the rock stations do it too, of course, but whatever's going to get me down there, man, because I've been, man, even my fiance is like, you think you're going to go to Australia next year? And it's like, I don't know. Management's always like, it's too expensive right now. We need a case for it, and so on and so forth. So I'm like, well, damn it, better noise, get on it and push it down there, because I need to make my way. It's been long overdue.
well, they are pushing with me, bro. I've got teasers up all over heavy social medias for you and stuff. So we're doing our part, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Heavy, heavy, baby.
No, now last time I had you on here, we did the photo bomb segment, and you're probably the first person I've ever got to do this twice with now, mate. So
Sweet.
I've got some new photos for you that I found on social media that I want to know a bit more about. So
Okay. All right.
this one here, mate, like you're playing firefighter for the day, but I doubt you can put any fires out with what you're holding there.
That was on the Theory of a Dead Man tour, and I met up with one of my brother's teammates who came out to the show, him and his wife, and who happens to be a Boston firefighter. So I said, dude, you got to, I mean, that's legendary stuff right there, especially, in America to go check out a Boston fire station. So, or how to say Boston, Boston, Boston,
Boston.
Boston, Boston. And he's like, dude, you got to put on my suit and everything. And as you could tell, I was having a great night. So I struggled a little bit putting that heavy gear on, but we ended up getting this picture and it was a lot of fun.
Very nice. And this other one, I don't know too much about planes, bro. So I don't know if you're in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat here, but it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was the plane. I'm flying it, and I took my dad up for Father's Day, and that was a very special
Oh,
moment. And he came up with me in my first plane, which was happened to be the first car I ever owned. It was a 1956 Tri-Pacer, and I bought that back in I think it was 2001, after a little after I got my license. And I only had it for a short period of time because I had to get rid of it. It had some maintenance issues, and I needed a bus for the U.S. tour. So I've been, I found some flight schools where I can just rent planes and have some friends that, I was able to rent planes and fly them. Actually, I just went flying yesterday, and but yeah, this is here Father's Day. I took my dad flying, and as you could tell, he's
he's having a
both have that
ball.
same smile, man. And he's the reason why I really got in aviation, from taking me out of class when the fighter jets would come to town or bringing me to the air show. So
That's beautiful
it's
photo. They haven't got any rule that you got to wear a t-shirt there up there, mate.
nah, 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 no. That's it's hot up there, especially in the summer. So I don't worry about it too much.
Let those nipples free, brother. All right, Corey. Well, thanks very much for your time, bro. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Sorry for Nothing, Volume 2 is out now. Another cracker album, bro. So best of luck.
Thank you, man. Well, as you can see, my dad's wearing my Outlaws and Outsiders shirt there, and as far as the nipples go, I do have a tank top on. But either way, Chris, I'm sorry for nothing, and thank you for bringing up that picture.